Lucky birds, they never miss a meal. I, on the other hand, will have to skip breakfast. I have a class to teach over at Prentice Hall. I mean, maybe I could stop for a quick bite on the way. Nah, look at the time. I really should get going. But I just can't seem to get hunger off my mind. Plastics are also on my mind. It's the subject of today's class. We'll be creating rubber molds to cast small plastic art objects. The class will be led by my good friend Julie Malen. She's one of New York's premier mold makers and can cast just about anything. So for now, the only consumption I need to be thinking about is global plastics consumption, which is sky high. What does it mean to be or to have plasticity? Maybe Julie can provide some answers. Looks like she's also provided snacks.
Andrew, I wouldn't eat that if I were you.
Why not?
It's not a real carrot. It's made out of rubber.
Oh, it is. Where'd you get that?
I made it using this mold making process here. This is a plaster mold. You can see it fits perfectly in there.
And then this is the top?
Yes, it's a 2-part mold.
Okay, and then what's that?
That's a pour spout. So you have to have a way of getting the material into the mold that you're casting.
I thought people usually made molds out of rubber.
Well, if you're casting rubber like this carrot or this fish, you want to use a rigid material to cast. So for these, I used plaster. And for hard materials like plaster or resin, you would use a flexible mold material like rubber to cast rigid material. You can see this is kind of floppy, right? So it needs a support shell or a mother mold to keep its shape.
So in this case, the rubber is the cast, but in this case, this is all still mold material. This is the mother mold, and then you're going to cast something inside of here.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can either pour it in or you can also brush it in.
So this is more complicated in a way.
It is a little more
3 steps.
complicated, yeah. And this is kind of a bigger mold, but for class today, we'll make a small rubber mold to cast resin into.
So we're going to work with plaster?
No plaster. For the mother mold for that, we're just going to use a plastic cup.
And what are we making a mold of?
We're going to use these golf balls that have been glued together as our model. So this again is our mother mold, or the container we're going to pour into. And we need to make that pour spout, which you pointed out on all of these molds.
Yeah, like this
little
pour
funnels. We can use clay to do that. So I have this sulfur-free fine art sculpting clay. We're going to form that into a funnel shape. We'll put that against the model. We'll use that to mount the model inside the mother mold or the cup that we're using. Firmly press this down at the center and bottom of the cup. And now that's ready to get rubber poured around it.
So what's the bottom currently will eventually be the top for pouring into?
Exactly. There won't be any rubber around where the clay is. And so that'll be an opening where we can pour the resin into. And then these marks with the Sharpie will transfer to the rubber. So when we take it out, we'll be able to see exactly where we need to cut on the rubber.
Great.
So I'm also marking on here where I'm going to fill up rubber material. Both the part A and the part B have to get mixed thoroughly before we use them. You want to make sure to scrape the bottom of the container really well because it has a tendency to settle, and then also scraping the sides really well.
So you're going to fill it the whole way to
26.
26
I'll
ounces.
do just shy of that, because that should be plenty of material.
Yeah, it looks like 26 is just above the golf balls.
Exactly. And I'll add 89 grams of the part B. For this, you're looking for them to be both thoroughly combined. It usually takes about 3 minutes. Yeah. So I think this is ready to pour. I'm gonna turn this so I can see exactly where my pour line is.
You're going to pour to this mark.
Yeah, you always want to pour to the lowest point of your containment field. In this case, I'm going to be aiming for the bottom of the cup. You pour at one point and let the mold material slowly rise up around your form. That's the best way to capture all the details.
All right, Julie, so 4 hours have passed. Definitely firmed up. It is not super soft, but it's squishy. It seems almost like a racquetball level of resistance.
Yeah, this is perfect. It's fully cured, and we're ready to take it out of the mother mold.
So the cup and the rubber are going to have different cut lines that don't match up.
Exactly, so that the cup can help support the rubber material. So this popped right out, and
There's your pour spout on the top.
yeah, so this is the top of the mold, and we'll need to make a hole in the cup so that we have access to the pour spout. As you can see, our mark in the cup has transferred to the rubber. So that shows us exactly where we need to cut to get our object out of the mold. Starting from the top, I'm just going to make an incision along where the model is inside of the rubber. And
Feel
now
that?
I can see the golf ball in there.
Oh, look at that.
So we can open this up now, pull these out, and you can see inside of here.
Oh, look, all the dimples.
Yeah.
It's even shiny, like the ball is. It's the exact surface.
Yeah, so the mold rubber will retain the same surface sheen as the model. So after we get this cleaned up, we're going to cast resin into here. We chose Smooth Cast 327, but you can cast any number of rigid media into here. Yeah, we'll line our mold rubber back up along the seam, and then we'll use our cup as the mother mold, and we'll use a rubber band to tie everything together.
Now that we've got the rubber band on here, we're all ready to pour the urethane plastic in here.
That's right, but we're gonna need some special equipment for that because it's very toxic.
You know, I think the class is going to love this project, but I have to admit, I'm a little bit nervous about some of the health hazards around this material.
Well, there are alternatives, you know.
Like what?
You should check out Sasha Fishman's studio. She's working with bioplastics.
Bioplastics?
Yeah, you should check it out.
I think I'll check it out. This bioplastics material sounds really fascinating. I'm excited to see what Sasha Fishman can tell me about it. After seeing the safety precautions necessary to work with Julie's more traditional plastic materials, it would be nice to see some environmentally friendly options. It'd also be nice to finally eat.
Oh, hey, that's my algae.
What?
Yeah, that's my algae. It's for my bioplastics.
Oh, I didn't see you there, Sasha.
Hey,
How's it going?
great.
So Julie sent me over. She said you were doing stuff with bioplastics now.
Yeah.
Did she tell you about what we've been up to?
No, what are you doing?
So in my class, we've been making these silicone molds and we've been pouring plastic into them.
Ooh.
Let me show you what we got.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool.
So I like how the project turned out, but I have to admit, I'm sort of concerned about some of the health and environmental consequences of working with these materials.
I totally understand. Bioplastics can offer an alternative to working with plastics that aren't toxic. You could even eat them. I like to use these at pouring into molds and using them as alternative options to plastic. You can get something flexible like a rubber or something hard and brittle like a resin. These are all different tests that I've been doing over the years.
So you've made samples of hundreds of different batches of this material.
Oh yeah, there's so many different things you can do.
Beautiful.
And so many different sources.
The transparency is great. What are you making these bioplastics out of?
Those are from chitosan, which is from crustacean shells and insect shells. A lot of the ones in this book are from algae, gelatin, starches, cellulose, like different kinds of plants. And today I'm actually working with agar.
Agar, so what's that?
Agar is a polymer, a biopolymer that comes from the cell walls of seaweed. And these are different types of seaweed that have just like components of agar that gets extracted commercially. You can buy agar like this in these block forms. It can also come in a powder.
So not only is this stuff less harmful for the artist who's working with them, but this is also totally renewable resources. I mean, this is stuff that's washing up on the beach.
Yeah, but I will say that the materials you're working with in Julie's class are really stable and they'll last a very long time. They're also able to withstand a lot of wear and tear.
What are some of the downsides of bioplastics?
They do tend to break down much faster than plastic, so I don't know if a keychain is the best application for them, but I think for the purposes of art, I think they offer a great alternative.
Great. So can we mix up a batch today?
Yeah, so as I said, this is the agar powder, and we're going to be mixing it with water. We're also working with glycerin. It's just like a clear, syrupy substance that kind of helps the bioplastic to become more rubbery. It's also totally non-toxic. It's in a lot of baked goods and body products. So these are some more samples of what we're going to be doing today. This is a cast of a brain.
So you used a mold.
It came from this mold, yeah.
And then this is what you produced.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's slimy.
And whoa. And then this is one from last week. It looks kind of like a witch's hat, but it used to be a cone. The thing about bioplastics is that they're also unpredictable. Like they'll warp and shrink, and sometimes they'll grow mold. So there's a lot of agency the material has over you as it starts to change over time.
Well, that's different than the products I've worked with.
Exactly. But it's also kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're collaborating with these materials.
Exactly, yeah. So to make a bioplastic with agar, I'm gonna start with some water. And I'm gonna measure out some agar. And I'm just sprinkling it into the water so it mixes in there and doesn't clump. And then I'm also adding glycerin. It's really simple. It's kind of just like cooking, making Jell-O.
How about some of this?
Oh yeah, I wanted to add that for pigment and for strength properties that algae has.
Just a little dash?
Yeah, let's put some in there.
Ooh.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
it really turned it green.
Yeah. So now I'm just gonna heat it up. The cool thing about this that's also different from plastics is you can just do this in your kitchen, you know? Like with plastics, you need a ventilated room. You gotta have a space for it. But I feel like making bioplastics is really empowering because you can do it essentially anywhere.
And you can get these materials anywhere as well.
At the grocery store, yeah. It's gonna take a little bit for it to heat up.
So it's actually going to thicken in the pot after a certain amount of time and being heated and stirred.
Yeah. We're basically going to be making something like this. So this is the mold and this is the cast. So I put some rose petals, some plant matter, and different things in there. It could also be used to make like some kind of stained glass situations. It could be used for lamps.
Yeah, it seems like casting thin sheets is a real strength of this material.
Yeah, definitely. And that is something that can be hard to do with plastics because they tend to be better for thicker applications.
What do you do with these?
Oh, those are my friends.
Oh.
I was putting them on my fingers earlier.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, those are cicada shells.
Okay.
So this book over here, all of those are made from the same structure of the material that they're made of, which is chitosan. So it's another polymer that's similar to cellulose. It's like wood, but it's from just like insect shells, crustacean shells. So you can start to, look at just like the world around you. Look at debris that is being put in the trash that comes from just like a natural source. Think about the properties of it. Are they really hard and sturdy and they last a while? That could be a really great source of a bioplastic. Okay, it's starting to thicken.
Yeah, I can see it's like twice, maybe 3 times thicker than it was before.
Yeah.
Almost syrupy. And you have a very low boil.
Exactly. You don't want to make it super hot.
Yeah.
It'll start to denature the polymers. Okay, we're going to pour it.
It smells good.
I'm going to save some for another
Yeah.
little one. Do you want to stick some plant matter in there?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm going to press them in.
And these are just sort of decorative.
Yeah, little seed pods. They also can kind of help with the structure of it. You can also add fabrics to it, fibers. Those can help to reinforce it.
It's a really pretty green.
And the agar will cool down and set up pretty quickly. So it's really easy to work with, and it also can be demolded pretty quickly. So it'll start to shrink and pull away from the mold balls. It's going to become thinner because the water is evaporating. So the water is kind of helping to suspend the particles. It helped for all the polymers to cross-link that are in the agar. And it's basically now leaving that material, and as it's doing that, it's going to come closer together. I think it's really great to be open to just the possibilities and the ways it can surprise you, because really exciting things can happen from just like accidental mixtures.
So this is a wonderful alternative to some of the materials I was working with. But I have to ask, like, what about all the plastics that we already have in this world? I mean, you look out the window, there's plastic blowing down the street. What do we do about that?
Yeah, I actually know an artist who works a lot with recycled plastics. I can give you his name.
Great, I'd love to meet him. So off I went. I'm wondering if this repurposed material could be a solution to my earlier thoughts on global plastic consumption. Sasha Fishman put me in touch with a well-known artist who works in the field of plastics reclamation, Gary Dusek. I was told he runs an organization called Precious Plastic NYC, a group dedicated to repurposing plastic waste. So we went to visit him in his workshop in the Bronx.
Hey Andrew, how's it going? Nice to finally meet you.
Good to
Coming
meet
in, I'm
you.
just getting set up.
Excellent.
Basically, the goal of all of this stuff that we're doing is to take plastic out of the environment and put it into something that's supposed to be enduring, right? Whatever that is. The larger the object we make, the easier it is to take out of the environment, right? So like little plastic bags and like bottle caps, pretty hard to take out of the environment. We see it, we go to cleanups and we see the shit all over the beach. It's impossible, right? But if I make a big chunk of it, this is actually way easier to clean up. We've been working with completely unsorted ocean trash. We've been starting to do experiments with cleanups. So this is totally super garbage. This is like the filthiest garbage that we could find to try to test the materials. So this is from Yankee Stadium, that cleanup that I volunteered for this summer with Sanitation Foundation. That is Guardians of Flushing Bay. That came right out of Flushing Bay. The cooking process kills all the bacteria, just FYI. So the plastic comes in. We sort it by plastic type. So after it's cleaned and sorted, we shred it. This is an industrial shredder. This is not an industrial shredder, but this is the one that we're going to demonstrate because we can see what's happening. This is a manual injector by Sustainable Design Studio. They're a company that makes these machines in the UK. So this is what's coming out of the machine. Essentially, it's a giant hot glue gun. This is regulating the temperature. There's a thermocoupler here. So every plastic has a different melting temperature, which is why we really want to identify it. We want to avoid smoking of any kind. So this cools fairly quickly. By the time I pull it out of a mold, it's already fairly hard. This is still hot, so I would not touch that with your bare hands. So we will press fit that, a mold. Production molds are generally made out of milled aluminum, so we'll CNC this. Aluminum is awesome in general because it's fairly infinitely recyclable. And so with a car jack, we just press fit. Then I hold it down for 30 seconds. And then we're going to back it up just slightly. That creates a vacuum inside, so plastic can't come out of the barrel. Release, and then back it all the way up. It's starting to get hot. So molding and demolding is what I'm doing like 95% of the time. It's not very glamorous. So this is what's known as a sprue. And I'll take that and I'll throw it in my bin, and that will go be made into something in the future. And then we just trim off this flashing. So oftentimes it'll come out ready to go. So the desire is to A, get it exactly the color that I want it without adding anything, and B, to get it as perfect as possible right out of the mold so I don't have to sand it or cut it or do anything to it. So an extruder, this does the same thing that this does. The difference is that what's driving it is not a plunger that presses down. It's a screw inside that's pushing the material out here. So we use pretty simple molds. It's just like a deal like this. So same process as we're putting particulated plastic in here. It'll probably take 5 to 10 minutes for this to totally fill up. So I'm just controlling the speed of the auger. So this is turning and pushing plastic through here. We can make really long stuff. Like this is the same way that we're making 4-foot beams.
How feasible is it that you like really build a structure or something?
Super feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's being done already. I mean, all those like brown benches that are made out of plastic in the park is recycled HDPE. Same plastic, same method. You can totally build structures out of it. And so you can also do cool free form stuff. So this is just an extruder like a 3D printer. If you have heat gloves, you can like manipulate the plastic by hand. So it's like gummy, it's not like liquid. And I can shape this afterwards, although it does behave in unpredictable ways because the outside's cooling much faster than the inside. So then we take the mold off and we let it cool. If you could freeform this all day long. As long as you're being safe with the ventilation, you know what plastic you're working with. With some awareness, you can work with this material very safely, with barely any equipment. And then there's compression, which is done in an oven. I'm actually going to start heating this up as well. You can use something as simple as a toaster oven if you have adequate ventilation. I started with this toaster oven that I found on the street like 8 years ago. So if you all want to take get a little bit of plastic somewhere of all polypropylene and like put your mark on this sheet, we can cook it and then it'll be a token of your participation. What we're doing right now is the same as you would do on a large scale. You just wouldn't be using a toaster oven, obviously. You would be using a massive machine. Beautiful. And then we'll cook that sucker for like 10 minutes. This is still cooling down. So because of the shrinkage, we can count on this actually sliding right out once it's cool, right? So we're gonna leave that for a little bit. All right, this looks like it's donezo, ladies and gents.
Did you start with this rather than the injectable? Wait, yeah, when did you start with the plastic?
There we go. Generally what I'll do is leave this under compression until it's fully cooled, because what'll happen is it will curl because it's still hot, it's shrinking in different rates.
It's encouraging to see beautiful new objects being created from our waste plastic. I was so engrossed, I completely forgot about my hunger. Thankfully, the day is winding down and I can reward myself with a turkey sandwich. Taking the time to sit and eat really allowed me to reflect on today's experiences. From petroleum-based plastics, to plant-derived bioplastics, to recycled plastics that take on new shapes, I now understand there are many types of plastic. These materials can be poured, rolled, injected, and made into almost anything, which is what plasticity is all about. But plastic isn't the only thing with plasticity. The human brain exhibits neuroplasticity, which is the ability to adapt in response to an experience, to learn, and in the best of situations, to change into an amazing new thing.